Hello again, Mr. C here, and I'm going to show you how to solve the box problem now from an algebraic standpoint. In our last video we saw that when this box is formed, the length of the base of the box is x minus 18, and the other length of the base of the box is x minus 18 as well. And that's ultimately a result of the fact that we started out with a square piece of sheet metal. We also saw that the corner, or the side length of the corner cut from each of the corners of the square piece of sheet metal, dictates the height. And of course, that height is going to be 9 since we cut out a 9 by 9 square from each corner. Alright, so overall, this problem is dealing with volume. In fact, the third sentence here says that the box is to hold 144 cubic centimeters. And we want to take all that information to figure out what the dimensions of the piece of sheet metal should be. So ultimately, we want to figure out what x is. Once we figure out what x is, we can go ahead and figure out just exactly what the dimensions of this piece of sheet metal should be in order to satisfy these conditions. Alright, so I did put something in the tail end of the description of the problem here. It says, recall that the volume of a box is given by a formula. V, capital V for volume, is equal to length times width times height. And actually, after our discussion in the last video, we know expressions for each of those. The length is referring to the length of the base of the box, is x minus 18. The width is referring to the other dimension of the base of the box, that's x minus 18 as well. And of course, our height is 9. So I'd like to go ahead and just indicate that this x minus 18 is going to serve as an expression for length, which I'll write as lowercase l. And this is going to serve as the width for our formula. And the 9 is going to serve as the height. So symbolically, volume can be written as this. Capital V equals length times width times height. We have everything we need in order to fill in stuff for each of these variables. For instance, the volume is 144 cubic centimeters. So we're going to go ahead and replace capital V by 144. Length is given by the expression x minus 18, so we'll go ahead and replace that L with the expression x minus 18, which I suggest using some parentheses around that. The width is also x minus 18, so again parentheses and another copy of the expression x minus 18. And the height is 9. So now we're off to the races in terms of algebra. Our goal here, of course, is to solve for x. One thing I want you guys to note is that on the right-hand side, there are 3 factors that are being multiplied together. So x minus 18 is being multiplied to x minus 18, of course, and all that's being multiplied to 9. What I'd like to do is actually write this expression in a more condensed fashion. Alright, so we'll leave 144 alone for right now. But on the right-hand side, I'd like to lead off with the factor of 9 and then rewrite x minus 18 times itself as x minus 18 quantity squared. You can probably tell that we're going to apply the square root method in just a few short steps. However, before we do that, one thing I want to mention is that we need to get rid of any factors that are in front of the quantity being squared. So what that means is we'll have to decide on how to get rid of this 9 that's being multiplied to x minus 18 quantity squared. And you probably know the drill. We'll go ahead and divide both sides by 9. And 144 divided by 9 winds up giving us 16. On the right-hand side, we'll have just x minus 18 quantity squared. So now that the expression being squared is isolated, we can go ahead and isolate x even further by applying the square root method, which ultimately says that if you have an expression squared equal to a positive number, then what you want to do is square root both sides. So I'm going to square root the right-hand side, which will get rid of our power of 2 and the radical symbol. And on the left-hand side, I'm going to square root 18. Now, is there anything I'm forgetting in front of that square root? Yep, it's the plus or minus. So think about my SpongeBob reference during class last time. Alright, so don't forget it. So I'm going to go ahead and put plus or minus. And we actually have a nice square root to take. The square root of 16 gives us 4. So on the left-hand side, we're looking at plus or minus 4. And on the right hand side, of course, the radical and power of 2 cancel each other out, and we have left over x minus 18. So what I'm going to do here is actually separate this into 2 separate equations, and what allows me to do that is the fact that we have not only positive 4 equal to x minus 18, but also negative 4 equal to it. So this yields 2 equations. Either x minus 18 is equal to positive 4, or x minus 18 is equal to negative 4. So it bounces us into 2 equations, but they're really, really easy linear equations. All we ultimately have to do to both of these is just add 18 on either side of the equal sign. So in doing so, we get one value of x as 22, another value of x as 14. So 2 different values of x, but one of these actually does not work. And the value of x that does not work is actually x equals 14. I'm going to go ahead and cross that out, but I'm not going to tell you why that doesn't work. Actually, I would like to see if you can leave it in the comments below as to why 14 is not a legitimate answer for x. Alright, so with that said, our answer for x is 22, meaning 22 centimeters. So going back to the original problem, let's remind ourselves of what we're trying to answer. It's what should the dimensions of the piece of sheet metal be? Now currently on this diagram we have the dimensions labeled as x by x. Alright, but now after we set up the equation and solve for x and noted that 22 is the legitimate solution for x, we can now go ahead and formally answer this problem by saying the dimensions would be 22 centimeters by 22 centimeters. Alright, what I'd like to do next is actually go ahead and show you a check of this solution, or a check of the answer that x is 22 centimeters. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. We'll do a little check. Ultimately what should happen is that when x is 22 centimeters, the volume of the box should work out to be 144 cubic centimeters. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and draw another box here. And as I'm checking the solution, you'll probably be able to figure out why x equals 14 is not a legitimate value for x, or at least from a physical standpoint. So going back up to the diagram, this one in particular, since we know that x is 22 centimeters, that's going to give us a more precise value of the lengths of the base of the box. So with x is 22, this side length of the base is going to be 22 minus 18, which is 4. Likewise, the other side length of the base is going to be 22 minus 18, which is 4 as well. Now, of course, the height is 9. There's no variable x to plug in here, so the height of our check is still going to be 9. So with that information, our box, oops, excuse me, let me get rid of that. Okay, the base for our box is 22 minus 18, so 4 centimeters by a 22 minus 18 again, which is 4 centimeters, and the height is 9 centimeters. Alright, so based on the formula for volume of a box again, V equals length times width times height, we want to see if we wind up with 144 centimeters cubed when we multiply 4 times 9. So we're checking to see if 144 centimeters cubed is equal to 4 centimeters times 4 centimeters times 9 centimeters. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do the arithmetic on the right hand side. First of all, 4 times 4 is 16. So 16 centimeters squared, that would be, times 9 centimeters. And of course, now let's go ahead and multiply 16 to 9. And that, of course, does give us 144. And there'd be 3 factors of centimeters, so centimeters cubed. So we do see that we do get the correct volume. if the value of x is 22 centimeters, which yields a base of a box of dimensions 4 centimeters by 4 centimeters. Alright, so note that this is a check, but what we're ultimately trying to answer is the dimensions of the original piece of sheet metal. Alright, so our answer ties back in to the original diagram where we labeled it as x by x. So hopefully that all makes sense. If it doesn't, feel free to shoot me any questions. Otherwise, I hope you found this video helpful, and thank you for watching.